The 1980s were a battleground of innovation, and Europe built excavators so advanced, so powerful, and so strange that the world didn't know what to make of them. Some were engineering masterpieces, some were total experiments, and some were forgotten before anyone realized how revolutionary they truly were. But every single one of them shocked the world. Get ready, because these are the 10 forgotten European excavators from the 1980s that history tried to erase. Number 1. Åkerman H25C. In the early 1980s, Sweden was quietly becoming a global powerhouse of hydraulic engineering, and Åkerman's H25C was the perfect example of Scandinavian innovation at its peak. While most manufacturers were struggling to balance power with hydraulic efficiency, Åkerman went all in on creating an excavator that could outperform nearly everything in its class. The H25C was introduced with a hydraulic system so advanced that operators often said it felt 10 years ahead of anything else they had run at the time. Powered by a massive turbocharged diesel engine and supported by one of the strongest booms Sweden had ever produced, the H25C became famous for its insane digging force. It could rip through frozen Nordic soil, granite-heavy ground, and clay-packed construction sites without breaking a sweat. What shocked operators was how smooth the machine felt even under extreme load. Åkerman's variable flow hydraulics provided an unmatched combination of power and precision. But perhaps its most futuristic feature was the level of operator comfort. In the 1980s, excavator cabs were still noisy, shaky boxes, but Åkerman used industrial-grade insulation, ergonomic seating, and vibration reduction that made the H25C feel like luxury. It wasn't unusual for operators to prefer working overtime simply because it was more comfortable than their own pickup trucks. Sadly, despite its incredible abilities, the model suffered from limited global distribution. Åkerman wasn't a giant like Komatsu or Caterpillar, and their marketing outside Scandinavia was minimal. Only a few hundred units ever made it to the rest of Europe, making the H25C fade into obscurity despite being one of the most advanced excavators of its time. Today, collectors and old operators still talk about it with a sense of awe. The H25C wasn't just a machine, it was a statement of what European engineering could achieve. Number 2. Liebherr R932. Electronic prototype. Long before smart excavators became the norm, Liebherr was secretly experimenting with electronic assistance systems in the early 90s. One of the most important but nearly forgotten machines from this period was the Liebherr R932 electronic prototype, a testbed for the company's future electronic, Liebherr plus electronic technology that would later dominate the market. To most people, it looked like a regular 30-ton excavator, but underneath its steel skin was one of the first computerized hydraulic feedback systems ever installed in a European construction machine. The excavator could automatically adjust hydraulic pressure, optimize pump flow, and prevent boom overload, things that were unheard of in the 1980s. Operators were stunned. For the first time, you had a machine that thought before it moved. This allowed the R932 prototype to deliver silky smooth control, more fuel efficiency, and better digging consistency than most excavators of the era. Liebherr was essentially testing early versions of what modern operators now know as machine control, load-sensing hydraulics, and semi-autonomous assistance. Another shocking element was the cab. Liebherr equipped the prototype with digital gauges, ergonomic controls, and what operators back then described as spaceship-like indicators. This was at a time when many excavator dashboards still used basic mechanical needles and clunky levers. However, the R932 electronic prototype never made it to full production. The technology was too expensive for the 1980s market, and most construction companies weren't ready to trust electronics in heavy machinery. Only a handful of prototypes were ever built. Yet this forgotten machine changed everything. The lessons learned from the R932 prototype became the foundation of Liebherr's electronic line, which by the 1990s became one of the most advanced excavator systems in the world. Without this forgotten 1980s experiment, modern excavators might look very different today. Number 3. Åkerman H4120. Early European model. When people think of giant mining excavators, they often picture Caterpillar or Hitachi machines. But in the early 1980s, Germany's Orenstein and Koppel (ONK) shocked the world with something unprecedented: the earliest version of the RH120, a hydraulic mining excavator so powerful it would later become the basis for modern ultra-class mining machines. The RH120 was massive for its time. While it later grew into a 300-ton monster used in open-pit mines worldwide, the early 1980s European version was already leagues ahead of anything most manufacturers could produce. It featured one of the most effective twin hydraulic pump systems ever designed in Europe, allowing the boom and stick to move with surprising speed for a machine of its size. The excavator was capable of loading huge haul trucks in just a few passes, which blew the minds of mining operators across Germany and Eastern Europe. Its digging force and breakout performance were unmatched, and engineers praised its structural durability. O&K built these machines to survive decades of abuse. But what truly shocked the industry was the machine's hydraulic precision. Despite being a giant, it moved with almost surgical smoothness, a characteristic that would later define O&K's mining excavators. In a time when many big machines felt crude and slow, the RH120 brought finesse to the world of mega earth-moving. Unfortunately, only a limited number of these early European models were produced before O&K switched to updated versions in the late 1980s. Many early RH120s were scrapped, cannibalized for parts, or retired quietly in mines where few people ever saw them. Today, the RH120 name still exists under Caterpillar's ownership, but the original 1980s European model has nearly disappeared from history. Yet it remains one of the most important excavators ever built, one that changed mining forever. Number 4. Fiat Hitachi FH200 Early Release. In the late 1980s, before the Fiat-Hitachi partnership became globally recognized, the company introduced a machine that blended Italian mechanical design with Japanese hydraulic precision, the Fiat Hitachi FH200 early model. It didn't achieve mainstream fame, but those who operated it swore it was decades ahead of its competition. What shocked the industry wasn't just its performance, it was the hybrid nature of its engineering. Fiat contributed its robust engine technology and strong undercarriages, while Hitachi provided ultra-smooth hydraulics that were already gaining fame in Asia. This East-meets-West combination produced an excavator that felt unbelievably modern for 1980s Europe. The FH200 offered one of the smoothest digging cycles in its class. Operators were stunned by how easily it could perform fine grading, trenching, and heavy digging without the jerky movements typical of 1980s machines. The hydraulic responsiveness was so refined that many European brands struggled to match it even in the early 1990s. Another shocking detail was its fuel efficiency. While many excavators of the 1980s were fuel-hungry beasts, the FH200 achieved lower consumption thanks to its smart pump design and lighter but stronger boom configuration. For contractors who experimented with it, the savings were significant. But perhaps the biggest reason it remains forgotten is timing. The FH200 came out when the European market was flooded with established giants like Liebherr, O&K, and Åkerman. The Fiat-Hitachi partnership was still new, and customers didn't trust it yet. As a result, the FH200 remained underrated despite its impressive abilities. Today, you'll rarely find one still running. But old-school operators say it was the machine that made them fall in love with excavators. It was smoother, smarter, and more refined than almost anything in the late 80s, a forgotten legend overshadowed by bigger names. Number 5. Poclain 125CK. No discussion of forgotten European excavators is complete without mentioning Poclain, the French company that revolutionized hydraulic machinery long before most competitors caught up. And the Poclain 125CK, released in the 1980s, remains one of the most important yet forgotten excavators ever made. What shocked the world wasn't its size or power, it was its hydraulic innovation. Poclain was obsessed with perfecting hydraulic motors and pumps, and the 125CK came equipped with one of the earliest high-flow, high-precision hydraulic systems designed specifically for European construction sites. When other excavators struggled with consistency and overheating during long working hours, the 125CK remained stable, smooth, and incredibly durable. Contractors loved its versatility. The machine could handle road work, quarry operations, pipe laying, and heavy digging without modification. The boom geometry allowed for excellent reach and depth, and the machine's balance was so well designed that operators often said it felt like an extension of your arm. What truly set it apart was its compact yet powerful profile. At a time when many excavators were bulky and inefficient, the 125CK delivered the perfect combination of strength and maneuverability, especially in tight European job sites. However, the brand's downfall came from financial struggles. Despite producing cutting-edge machines, Poclain couldn't compete with the marketing power of Japanese giants entering Europe. The company eventually sold its excavator division to Case, and the once famous models slowly disappeared from modern memory. Yet the 125CK remains a symbol of European hydraulic excellence, a machine that paved the way for the excavators we know today. Number 6. Hymac 580D. In the early 1980s, the UK's construction industry witnessed an engineering breakthrough that few outside Britain ever got to appreciate: the Hymac 580D. Hymac had already built a loyal following with its earlier models, but the 580D was considered their masterpiece. What shocked operators was how ahead of its time this machine really was. The 580D featured a unique hydraulic system that delivered surprisingly smooth performance for a British excavator of the era. Most UK-made machines were known for brute strength rather than finesse, but the 580D challenged that stereotype completely. Its slewing speed was faster than many competitors from Europe and Japan, and its boom response was incredibly sharp for a company that didn't have the financial power of Liebherr or Hitachi. Another standout feature was its weight distribution. Hymac engineers designed the 580D with an innovative counterweight configuration that gave it superb stability. Operators loved how confidently it could work on uneven or sloped terrain, something that many European excavators struggled with during that time. But one of the most shocking aspects was its durability. There are countless stories of 580Ds running hard for decades with minimal maintenance, surviving harsh weather, poor servicing, and even owner abuse. For a machine built by a smaller company, its toughness rivaled giants like Komatsu and Caterpillar. Sadly, despite its brilliance, Hymac was struggling financially. Japanese brands were entering Europe with cheaper, more refined excavators, and Hymac couldn't match their production scale. As a result, the 580D never received the recognition it deserved, and the company eventually collapsed. Today, surviving units are cherished by collectors, and many British operators still say the 580D was the smoothest and most reliable machine of its era. A forgotten British gem that deserved global fame, but vanished too soon. Number 7. Atlas 1604. The Atlas 1604 was one of Germany's most versatile excavators of the 1980s, yet it remains surprisingly forgotten today. At a time when many machines were either specialized for construction or industrial use, the 1604 stood out because it could do almost everything and do it well. What shocked the industry was its mix of speed, power, and versatility. The 1604 was engineered with rapid hydraulic response, making it almost 30–40% faster in cycle times than many rivals in its weight class. Operators who tried it for the first time were stunned by how quickly it could perform digging, lifting, loading, and grading tasks without hesitation. Its signature feature was its exceptional road mobility. Unlike many excavators that struggled on roads, the Atlas 1604 could travel between job sites with ease. This made it extremely popular among municipal contractors, utility companies, and railway maintenance crews. Groups who needed a machine that could do everything from digging trenches to lifting poles or clearing debris. Another shocking attribute was the excavator's hydraulic precision. Atlas equipped the 1604 with one of the smoothest control systems in Europe. Fine grading felt almost effortless, and the machine's balance allowed for surprisingly stable lifting despite its relatively slim design. But the 1604's downfall wasn't the machine itself, it was marketing. Atlas never pushed the excavator aggressively outside Germany and a few nearby countries. Japanese brands were already flooding Europe with sleek modern machines, and the 1604 simply became overshadowed. Today, it's a collector's favorite, not because it was flashy, but because it was reliable, fast, and incredibly versatile. If the world had paid closer attention, the Atlas 1604 might have been remembered as one of Europe's greatest multi-purpose excavators. Number 8. Hanomag H41. Before Hanomag became fully absorbed into Komatsu, the German manufacturer released several innovative machines, one of the most impressive being the Hanomag H41 excavator from the early 1980s. It shocked operators with its strength, simplicity, and rugged build quality that felt almost military-grade. The H41 was designed for European contractors who needed a machine that could endure punishing environments. Unlike many excavators that relied heavily on electronic assistance, the H41 was a mechanical beast. Its raw digging force, strong steel fabrication, and reinforced boom made it a favorite for quarry work, demolition, and heavy earth moving. Operators often described it as unstoppable. Even in brutal German winters, the H41 would start reliably and push through frozen ground that would choke other machines. Its turbocharged engine delivered enormous torque at low RPMs, allowing it to tear through clay, gravel, and even semi-rocky terrain with shocking ease. But the real surprise was its maintenance simplicity. You didn't need specialized technicians, expensive diagnostic tools, or rare electronic parts. The H41 could be repaired on-site with basic tools, an enormous advantage during an era when many companies were struggling to keep up with rising maintenance costs. Unfortunately, Hanomag was facing financial instability during the 1980s, and despite the H41's impressive performance, the company couldn't keep pace with global competitors. When Komatsu eventually took over, most Hanomag designs were phased out, and the H41 slowly slipped into obscurity. Today, only a handful survive, yet those who've used it still praise it as one of the toughest excavators ever built in Europe. It was a machine that didn't need advanced electronics to shock the world, just raw power, steel, and German engineering grit. Number 9. Yumbo S25. France produced some of the most unusual excavators in Europe during the 1980s, and none are more fascinating or forgotten than the Yumbo S25. Yumbo was known for unconventional engineering decisions, and the S25 shocked operators not just with performance, but with its quirky design choices. The first shock was its boom geometry. While most brands used standard boom configurations, the S25 had a unique articulated boom that allowed extreme reach and flexibility in tight working areas. Operators could dig at unusual angles, work beside walls, reach sideways, and perform tasks that other excavators simply couldn't handle. This made it a favorite in urban job sites, sewer work, and roadside construction across parts of France and Belgium. Its maneuverability was unmatched, and contractors who understood its capabilities could complete jobs faster and with fewer machines. Another surprising feature was its hydraulic smoothness. Yumbo's pumps and valves were surprisingly advanced for a company that lacked the scale of Poclain or Liebherr. The S25 delivered impressive fine control, making it ideal for precision tasks such as trenching around buried utilities. However, the S25 also had a reputation for being quirky. Its unique boom design required skilled operators. Its parts were not widely available, and its limited export numbers meant few outside France ever had the chance to experience it. Yumbo eventually disappeared from the mainstream excavator market, and the S25 became a forgotten legend. Yet for the operators who mastered it, the machine was nothing less than a French masterpiece, strange, brilliant, and decades ahead of its competition in versatility. Number 10. Menzi Muck 5000. Early model. If there was one European excavator from the 1980s that truly shocked the world, it was the early Menzi Muck 5000, the Swiss spider excavator capable of going where no normal machine could. It didn't just dig, it defied physics. Unlike conventional excavators with fixed tracks, The Menzi Muck 5000 had adjustable legs, each capable of raising, lowering, or extending independently. This allowed the machine to stand on steep mountain slopes, riverbanks, forests, and even inside narrow ravines. No other excavator in the world could match its mobility in extreme terrain. Operators were stunned by what it could do. Walk over obstacle, climb hills nearly as steep as 45 degrees, enter lakes or rivers for underwater work, stabilize itself on uneven ground like a mountain goat. But the biggest shock was its power-to-weight ratio. While it looked unusual, the 5000 model packed serious hydraulic force, allowing it to match much larger excavators in digging and lifting power. This made it a favorite for rescue operations, forestry work, and alpine construction projects. In the 1980s, seeing a spider-like machine climbing rocks or standing on 3 legs while digging felt like science fiction. No other European company dared to experiment with such radical designs, which made the Menzi Muck 5000 truly groundbreaking. Yet despite its insane capabilities, the machine never became mainstream. It was too specialized, too expensive, and required highly trained operators. As a result, it remained a niche legend, known only to those who worked in extreme environments. Today, Menzi Muck is still a leader in spider excavators, but the early 1980s models are nearly forgotten despite their enormous influence. They changed what an excavator could be. These excavators may have vanished from the spotlight, but their ideas shaped the machines we rely on today. Europe pushed boundaries, broke rules, and built giants the world wasn't ready for. If you enjoyed this forgotten chapter of heavy machine history, hit like, subscribe, and tell me which excavator surprised you the most.